Hello, I'm Denise from EarlyON Waterloo Region, and today we're going to spend some time in my backyard. I hope that you'll discover some plants with me. Do you like to eat? Me too. And I also like to grow some of the things that I eat. So let's discover together some of the things that I'm just starting to grow. It's just starting to get a bit warmer out now. So the plants are just starting to get a bit bigger in my little greenhouse that I have, and it's time to start putting them out into my garden. So let's explore some of the things that I'm going to be growing this year. Does anybody know what these might be here on my plate? That's right, they're tomatoes. They're tiny little, I like to call them cherry tomatoes. And they're one thing that I'm going to grow this year. They started from a packet of seeds, but I'm going to cut open one of my tomatoes and you can see a seed right inside the tomato that I have here. Let's open it up together. See inside here all those little seeds? They're very tiny. That's the side of seed that I started with when I started my tomato plants this year. Here you can see my tomato plants are getting bigger, and I'm starting to separate them out so they can grow on their own. I'm going to move some of those to my garden or to a container, and hopefully in a few months, they'll start growing little tomatoes just like this in my own backyard. I'm so excited for those. When my tomatoes started to grow, they were just tiny little sprouts. And then I kept checking and they kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but it didn't happen all on its own. Do you know what a plant needs to grow? Think of maybe one or two things. You can see with my plants here that plants need some soil. And in that soil, they've got nutrients to help them grow. They also need water. We're going to be watering some plants later. And they need light and air. So they're loving this sunny weather that we're having right now. Something else that I'm excited to grow this year, and I'll show you how big the seeds are for these, is some peas. Open up my little packet of pea seeds and show you the seeds for peas are like the inside of a pea pod. Usually when you open them up, they're green, but then when they're dried out and ready to plant, they turn kind of just tan colored, light brown. And I'll show you in my garden how big my peas are getting already. Here's my peas growing beside my deck, and hopefully they'll grow up nice and tall on the trellis behind them. Another thing that I'm planting this year is squash. I love to eat squash. It's not going to be until the fall before my squash is ready, but hopefully I'll get some squash growing in my backyard. A squash seed looks like this. A lot bigger than the tomato seed. And I'll show you how big my squash plants are right now. And I think they're ready to go out in my garden. They're actually getting pretty tangled up. Here's my squash plants at the back. Like I said, they're getting pretty big. See how long they are? And they're kind of getting all wrapped up around each other. So I'm going to have to untangle them a little bit and put them out in my garden. That's part of my plans for the next couple days. And right here, you'll see I'm growing some basil. Basil is something that I like to add to things that I'm cooking. And today we're going to plant some of that basil into the garden. Here's what I call my herb garden. And as you can tell, I've got some plants growing here, and it's called sage. And I've got another plant here called thyme. These are both herbs that I like to cook with. And I've got another sign here that says basil. But as you can tell, there's nothing here yet. So that's what we're going to do. Right now, I'm going to plant some of the basil that I had started in my little greenhouse. These basil plants are getting kind of big for the pot that they're in, and it's time for them to go out into the garden. So let's do that together. But before we do, I'm going to show you on my hand here, hopefully you can see them. That's how tiny the seeds were to start my basil. They look like just tiny little pepper flakes. Got my little garden shovel. And I'm gonna make a hole in the ground and take the basil out of this little pot, and we'll see if I can separate some of the plants from each other. There's a nice little clump there. We'll put that in the hole. Pack the soil gently around it. Take some more here and break off another piece. I want to be gentle with the roots because they need the roots to grow down into their new spot in the soil. Another hole for this bunch. That guy. Now, do you remember what else I said plants need to grow? This soil is looking pretty dry right now. What should I add to this soil for the plants to grow? That's right. I need to add some water. So I'm just going to go get my watering can. I'm going to give these guys some water. Hopefully they'll start growing tall and strong. You know what? I'm going to water my sage and thyme as well. These two plants I planted last summer, and they came back again after the winter. That doesn't happen with every plant, but when it does, it's super exciting. I have a few other things in my greenhouse too. I've got some kale. And up here, I'll show you, I've made a little greenhouse in my greenhouse where the water collects and drips down and keeps the soil moist. And in here, there's some flower seeds that are growing. These are called portulaca. So hopefully those will grow a little bit bigger and I can have pretty flowers in my garden. Thanks for joining in with the video today. I hope you learned a little bit about plants. I'm going to continue to care for my plants this summer, and hopefully in a little while I can do another video and show you some of the things that have grown, and hopefully I'll have some fresh things that I can eat right from my own backyard. And maybe I've inspired you to try growing something at your house. When you're eating and prepping for meals at your house, maybe have a look at what's inside the fruits and vegetables that you're eating. Maybe you'll find some seeds. Maybe you can find some soil to put them in and see whether something will sprout or not. It can be fun to experiment and try. Bye for now.
Thank you for participating in our EarlyON Waterloo Region online programming. To learn more about EarlyON Waterloo Region, including our other programs and services, visit us online at earliersinfo.ca or follow us at EarlyON WR. We look forward to your family joining us again soon.